My daughter kicked me out when she found out I lost my job, but I won the lottery $5 million. My name is Thomas. I'm 65 years old. I spent my entire life working as a mechanical engineer. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it paid the bills and helped me raise my only daughter, Emily. Her mother passed away when Emily was just 8. From then on, it was just me and her against the world. I did everything for that girl. I worked double shifts so she could attend a good school. I skipped vacations so she could join dance classes and later, college. I wasn't perfect, but I never let her go without. I didn't date a goon. I didn't want Emily to ever feel like she came second. Now, standing on her porch with a small suitcase in my hand and my heart breaking in my chest, I wondered where all of that had gone. A week earlier, I lost my job. They said they were downsizing, that I was too close to retirement age, that the company had to make difficult decisions. After 37 years, they handed me a cardboard box and a handshake, just like that. I didn't tell Emily at first. I didn't want her to worry. She had her own life now, a husband, a new baby, a mortgage. I didn't want to be a burden, but the bills didn't stop. The pension was delayed. My savings were thinning faster than I thought. I started skipping meals, sold my watch, then my old truck. Eventually, I couldn't make rent anymore. I packed up and went to Emily's. She opened the door with a surprised smile. "Dad, everything okay?" I tried to smile back. "Just thought I'd come by, maybe stay for a few days." Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes after that. Still, she let me in. The first few days were awkward. Her husband Dan didn't say much to me. I caught him looking at me with a kind of quiet disapproval, like I was furniture in the wrong room. One night, while Emily was putting the baby to sleep, Dan asked, "So, Tom, how long are you planning on staying?" I blinked, "Just until I figure things out. Shouldn't be too long," he nodded. "All right, just this house is kind of tight." I nodded back, said nothing, but I felt the sting. It all came to a head the next weekend. Emily and Dan were in the kitchen. I overheard them talking, whispering, but not quietly enough. "He should have saved more," Dan said. "He didn't ask to be let go." Emily replied, "Yeah, but we've got a baby, Em. He can't just live here forever." My heart dropped. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I told Emily I'd lost my job. I told her everything. Her face froze. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Didn't want to worry you," I said. "Didn't want to be a burden." She didn't say anything for a while, just looked down at her coffee. That evening she came into the guest room, the storage room where they put a mattress for me, and told me I needed to go. "Dan's getting stressed," she said quietly. "We've got so much going on, Dad. I love you, but I think it's better if you find somewhere else." I nodded, didn't even argue. I just packed my things, kissed the baby on the head, and left. I walked out with my suitcase and a quiet goodbye. Emily didn't even come to the door the first night. I slept at a shelter. The next few days, I wandered, applied for jobs that no one would give a 65-year-old. I used to design engines. Now no one even wanted me to sweep a floor. I sat at the park one afternoon, my stomach growling, my pride in tatters. I saw a man toss a scratch-off lottery ticket into the trash. He was angry, muttering about losing again. I waited until he walked away. Then I pulled it out, mostly out of boredom. I scratched the last spot with my thumbnail and stared. $5 million. I thought it was a joke. Took it to a store. They confirmed it. Called the lottery office. Within a week, after taxes and paperwork, I had the money. Just like that, everything changed. I bought a used sedan, paid cash, checked into a clean motel, got a haircut, ate a proper meal. Then I sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling for hours. I could buy a house, a big one. I could travel. I could do anything. But the first thing I thought about was Emily. Part of me wanted to march up to her house, waving the check in her face. Wanted her to see what she'd thrown away. But another part, the quiet, aching part, just missed his daughter. Missed holding his granddaughter. Missed being someone she trusted. I didn't contact her, not yet. Instead, I made plans. I hired a financial advisor. I looked at properties in quiet towns. I donated to a few shelters that had helped me. I bought a few suits, took walks, thought. A month passed, then two. Then, one morning while sipping coffee at a cafe, I heard the chime of the door. I looked up. Emily. She looked thinner, tired. She spotted me and walked over slowly. "Hi, Dad." I nodded. "Emily." She sat down across from me, fiddled with her ring. "I heard," she said, "about the lottery. Dan saw your name online." I said nothing. I wanted to say I'm sorry about before. I didn't know what to do. I looked at her face. Still the little girl I raised, somewhere under the stress and makeup. "I understand," I said. "You had your family to think about." She looked like she wanted to cry. "I miss you," she whispered. I nodded. "I miss you too." She reached out across the table, and I let her hold my hand. We didn't say much after that, just sat there, with all the space between us slowly shrinking. But I didn't go back with her, not yet. There were still wounds, still silence that needed words, still questions about love and trust and where we go from here. But for the first time in months, I felt like maybe things could be okay, and for now, that was enough. The coffee had long gone cold. but neither of us moved to get a fresh cup. Emily kept her hand lightly on mine. Her grip wasn't firm, it was hesitant, like she wasn't sure she had the right to still reach for me. I didn't pull away. There was too much between us for this to be fixed in a single conversation. Years of sacrifice, months of silence, a handful of words that cut deeper than I think she ever meant. "I didn't come here for money," she said softly. Her voice cracked just enough that I believed her. "Dan didn't want me to come," he said. "He said you'd think we were just after the money." I nodded slowly but said nothing. She looked down at the table. "But I had to see you, not because of that. Because I can't stop thinking about what I did, about how I made you feel." Her eyes welled up, and she wiped a tear away with the sleeve of her cardigan. "I was scared, Dad. The baby was crying every night. Dan was stressed at work, and when you showed up, I didn't know how to handle it. I thought you were supposed to be strong. You were always strong, but then you needed me, and I just failed." I listened. All those nights I lay on a cot staring at the ceiling, wondering if she even cared. Those thoughts started to shift. Maybe she hadn't stopped caring. Maybe she just didn't know how to carry me the way I carried her. I sighed, gently. "We all fail each other sometimes, Em. It's what we do after that matters." She looked at me then, really looked at me. Are you happy now?" I thought about that for a long moment. Happiness felt complicated. I had money now, more than I ever dreamed of. But money didn't fill the space where family used to be. It didn't laugh with you over breakfast. It didn't call you Dad or place a sleepy baby in your arms. "I'm figuring it out," I said finally. She nodded slowly. "Do you want to come see the baby sometime?" "She's saying your name now, sort of, just but we know it's you." A smile crept up without permission. It reached my eyes this time. "I'd like that." The bell above the door rang as someone else walked in. Life went on around us. But for those few minutes, it was just us father and daughter, sitting across a worn cafe table, reaching for something they almost lost. We talked a bit longer, nothing heavy. She told me about the baby's first steps. I told her about a shelter downtown I was thinking of helping fund. Then she had to go. "Dan's waiting in the car," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "He didn't want to come in." She looked away. "He's complicated. Still upset, still proud. He's not there yet." I nodded. I didn't hate Dan. I didn't even blame him. Life makes us harder than we mean to be. Maybe someday we'd talk. Maybe not. Emily stood up and gave me a hug. It was tight. "Real, I'll call you," she said. "I'd like that." She hesitated at the door, looked back once, then slipped outside. I sat there long after she left. Then I walked outside into the cool air and drove back to the motel. It was a modest place. Nothing fancy, but clean, quiet, just enough. I had the money to live anywhere, but part of me still felt tied to simplicity. Maybe it was habit. Maybe guilt. Maybe just a need to stay grounded. That night I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the hum of the night. Her words echoed in my mind. "I thought you were supposed to be strong." I was tired of being strong. I wanted to be soft again. I wanted to be a father who laughed too loud and cried during commercials. I wanted to hold my granddaughter without wondering if I still had a place in her life. The next morning I met with my advisor. He wore glasses too big for his face and always looked like he hadn't slept. But he was good at what he did. "Thinking about buying property again?" he asked. As I walked in, I shook my head. "I'm thinking about building something." He leaned forward. "What kind of something?" I told him about a small idea I had, a place, a mansion or a retreat, but a home not just for me, for others. A house with several rooms, maybe in a quiet neighborhood, something open, warm, a place where people who had nowhere to go could get a second chance. Not a shelter, not officially, just a house, a space, with books, a garden, a warm kitchen. He smiled. "You've got the funds. You want to set up a non-profit model for it." I nodded. "But I don't want it to be about the money. I want it to be about dignity, a place people come to rest, not to feel saved." He scribbled some notes. "This is a good idea, Tom." I felt something loosen in my chest. The next few weeks were a flurry of meetings, planning, legal paperwork, zoning laws, and construction estimates. It kept my hands busy, and my mind clearer than it had been in months. Sometimes I'd get calls from Emily. Short ones. "The baby clapping a new word," she said. Sometimes a picture of a crayon drawing that looked like a lopsided house and a stick figure with big ears, she'd say through the phone, and my heart would swell every time. One day, while I was touring a property on the edge of town, I found a small two-story house with chipped paint and a sagging porch. But something about it pulled at me. It wasn't perfect, but it could be. It had a garden overgrown with weeds, but I could already picture herbs growing, tomatoes, maybe a swing for the baby. I bought it the next day. The first few days were spent scrubbing walls, tearing up old carpets, airing out forgotten rooms. I hired a small team, people who needed work, folks I met at the shelter or around town, paid them fare, gave them lunches, talked with them while we painted. One of them, a man named Carlos, was about my age, graying hair, quiet smile. "You own this place?" he asked one day while fixing the front gate. "Sort of," I said. "I think it'll own me soon." He laughed. "It's a good thing you're doing." I shrugged, trying to be useful again. He paused. You already are. More than most. We went back to work. By the end of the second month, the house had life again. Clean walls, soft lighting, a smell of lemon and soap, books on the shelves, plates in the cabinets, that it felt like it was waiting for stories. I invited Emily and the baby over, just for an afternoon. She looked around with wide eyes. You did all this yourself, with help. She carried the baby through the rooms, pausing at the nursery I had quietly decorated. Is this for her? I smiled. It's for anyone, but I hoped she'd visit. The baby clapped and toddled toward a low shelf full of stuffed animals. Emily sat down on the old couch in the living room, her eyes glistening. I missed you, Dad. I sat beside her. I'm still here. The baby climbed into my lap and held up a soft bear. Bah, she said, and I held her close. That night after they left, I sat on the porch alone, listening to the crickets. The wind carried the scent of something blooming. The house behind me was quiet, but not empty. I didn't know what would come next, whether Dan would ever come around, whether Emily and I would be what we once were, but I knew I had built something. Something more than wealth. And maybe, just maybe, something that could help others heal too. The stars blinked above, and I sat quietly, letting the night hold me, still not ending the story, just breathing into it, waiting for whatever came next. Mornings in the house were different now. There was light, not just from the sun filtering through the lace curtains in the kitchen, but from the rhythm of footsteps across the wooden floors, the scent of fresh coffee brewing, and the hum of quiet conversations between strangers slowly becoming something more. I'd opened the doors quietly at first, no grand announcements, just word of mouth. A man named Lewis was the first to come by. He was in his 50s, polite, but carried a sadness in his eyes that sat deeper than anything I could ask about right away. He stayed in the room upstairs, the one with the blue walls. Spent his mornings reading and his afternoons helping me. In the garden, he never said why he needed a place. I never asked. Then came June, early 30s, soft-spoken, pregnant. She'd been sleeping in her car for a week before a woman at the shelter told her about the house. She was careful at first, always looking over her shoulder, like someone might come take it all away. I let her be. She began cooking in the evenings, said she found it calming. Her chicken soup brought the whole place together. Even Lewis started smiling more. The house began to feel alive. I didn't expect how much I'd need. That some days I still felt the sting of that night, away from Emily's porch with nothing but a suitcase and a heart full of rejection. But now, I'd wake up and hear someone laughing in the hallway, or see June humming softly while setting the table. The ache softened. Emily visited once a week, sometimes with the baby, sometimes alone. We didn't always talk about what happened. Sometimes we just sat in the garden. Other times we worked side by side, fixing up a bench or organizing books. The unspoken things slowly started to feel lighter between us. One rainy afternoon, she brought over some of my old boxes from storage. I thought you might want these, she said, setting them down by the fireplace. I sat on the floor and opened the top one. Inside were photo albums, crinkled birthday cards, a tiny sweater Emily had worn when she was 4. She picked it up, ran her fingers over the faded thread. I remember this. You used to chase me around the living room when I wore it, said I looked like a duck. I chuckled. You did. The sleeves were so puffy, she smiled, but there was a sadness behind it. I don't know how I forgot all this, how I let life get so loud that I couldn't hear you anymore. I closed the box and looked at her. It's never too late to remember. She looked away then, eyes glistening. Dan wants to move. He's applied for a job in Chicago. The words hit like a slow-moving wave. And you, I asked. She hesitated. I don't know. Part of me thinks it's what we need, a fresh start, but another part doesn't want to go. I waited. What does your heart say? She didn't answer right away, just stared at the rain tracing lines on the window. It says, I'm tired of running from the people I love. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. The house creaked gently, like it was listening. The next day I found June in the kitchen, looking pale. Her hands trembled as she stirred oatmeal. You okay? I asked. She nodded too quickly. I waited. She turned around, eyes full of fear. He found me, my ex. He's been calling again. He wants to know where I am. I felt a slow fire rise in my chest. Did you answer? She shook her head. No, I blocked the number. But I'm scared. If he finds out where I am, I stepped closer. He won't. Not here. You're safe here. Her lower lip trembled. I don't want to run anymore. I remembered Emily's words from the day before. I don't want to run anymore. Something was shifting, not just in this house, but in all of us. We weren't just surviving. We were learning to stay. To root. A week later, the baby came early. June went into labor late one night. I called an ambulance, and she gripped my hand all the way to the hospital. She didn't have anyone else. Lewis paced the front porch for hours after she left, cigarette unlit between his fingers when I came back with news. He exhaled a breath he'd been holding. It's a girl, I said. 7 pounds. June's okay. Tired, but okay. Lewis smiled wider than I'd seen him. She said she wants to name her Hope. He nodded, fitting. That night, the house felt quieter but not lonely. I sat in the nursery, alone, just watching the mobile spin lazily above the crib we hadn't used yet. and I thought about how this wasn't the life I expected to have at 60-5. It wasn't the retirement I dreamed of. I didn't have a beach house or a golf course or a cruises lined up, but I had this house where people came with broken pieces and slowly put themselves back together. A daughter who was starting to look at me like home again, a second chance. The next morning, I found a letter on the kitchen counter. It was from Lewis. He was gone. Said he'd found a job in another town. That said he finally felt like maybe he had something to offer again. There was a small note tucked at the end. You gave me more than a bed, Tom. You gave me a reason to keep trying. Thank you. I sat at the table for a long time after that, the letter trembling slightly in my hands. I hadn't realized how much he meant to the rhythm of the place until he wasn't there. But I was proud. This house wasn't meant to keep people forever, just long enough for them to find their feet again. Emily called later that afternoon. Can I come over tonight? Just me. Of course, when she arrived, she looked different, like someone who'd made a choice. She sat across from me in the same cafe where we had reconnected months ago. I'm not going to Chicago, she said quietly. My chest tightened. I told Dan I can't leave. Not like this. I can't raise my daughter thinking it's normal to abandon the people you love when life gets messy. She looked at me, her voice shaking. I want to be better, Dad. I want her to know you. I want her to grow up seeing what real love looks like. I reached across the table and took her hand. No speeches, no perfect lines, just the warmth of forgiveness. We'll figure it out. She nodded, her shoulders softening. We talked until the sun dipped low, casting gold across the street. When she left, I watched her drive away, this time knowing she'd come back at the house. June returned with her baby a few days later, was tiny, wrapped in a blanket with little clouds on it. She cried a lot, but her cries filled the place with something new, promise. Life. There were new faces trickling in. People hearing about the house, a friend of June's, a man recently released from rehab, a teenager who'd aged out of foster care. They came one by one, hesitant, tired, but with a spark deep inside, still flickering. I didn't have all the answers for them, but I had a key, and a house that listened. The work never stopped. Some days the pipes leaked, some nights the crying lasted too long. Not every story ended in healing, but every story mattered, and somehow between paint stains and baby bottles, between whispered apologies and shared meals, we were building something that felt like family. I still didn't know exactly what I was doing, but I was here, and that, for now, was enough to keep the light on. The story doesn't end here, it's still unfolding. Day by day, room by room, heart by heart, and I'm still listening. The days started to stretch longer as summer approached. The sunlight lingered in the sky like it didn't want to leave, and in some strange way I understood that feeling. Evenings in the house had started to carry a rhythm of their own. Dishes clinking in the sink, soft laughter echoing from the hallway, the scent of lavender from the front porch drifting into the living room. Hope was sleeping better now. June looked less afraid, more settled. She often curled up on the armchair and the evening baby on her chest, eyes closed but awake. Sometimes she'd say, I don't know how I got so lucky. I'd always smile and tell her it wasn't luck, it was bravery. Emily started coming by more often. She brought food sometimes. Once she came with a few boxes of children's books and toys her daughter had outgrown. For the house, she said, but I saw how gently she placed the books on the shelf in the playroom. She was claiming this space too, little by little. One afternoon while I was fixing the fence in the backyard, Emily came outside with lemonade. We sat on the porch steps, our knees brushing. Dan's interviewing at places in the city now, she said quietly. How's that going? She shrugged. He's struggling. It's hard for him. Swallowing pride, admitting we need a new start. I nodded. He doesn't hate you, Dad. You know that, right? He was just scared. He comes from people who never needed anyone. I ran my fingers along a chipped piece of wood on the stair. Needing someone isn't a weakness. She looked at me, really looked. No, it's not, but it takes some of us longer to learn that. Hope started crying inside, and June's soft voice drifted through the screen door, singing her back to sleep. She's got a good voice, Emily said. She does. You always used to sing to me when I had nightmares, that silly frog song. I chuckled. The one with the lopsided toad who played the banjo. She laughed. That's the one. The porch creaked under our weight. The moment stretched long and warm. You were a good dad, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Even when I forgot that, I didn't say anything for a moment. Just let the words wash over me. They didn't erase everything, but they settled something that had been rattling inside me for a long time that night. After the house quieted down, I sat at the kitchen table alone. I thought about my old life, the office, the routines, the silence of living alone in a two-bedroom apartment filled with things but not people. Now, there were fingerprints on the windows, mismatched mugs in the cupboards, a puzzle missing one piece that nobody minded. This mess meant something. It meant life. A few days later, a boy showed up at the gate. Couldn't have been more than 19. He was thin, eyes sharp with fear, backpack slung over one shoulder. Heard about this place, he said. Is it true that you let people stay? I nodded. We've got a bed, if you're tired. He hesitated. What do I got to do in return? I smiled gently. Just be kind and be real. He looked like he wanted to cry. My name's Eli. Welcome home, Eli. He didn't have much with him. A few shirts, a broken phone, and a drawing pad. He spent his first few nights not saying much, eyes darting like a cornered animal, but one morning I found a sketch on the kitchen table. It was the house, our house, but drawn in pencil lines. So soft and loving it almost brought me to tears. I left a note under it. You've got a gift, don't stop. He didn't say anything, but the next day he left another drawing on the fridge. Hope with a pacifier. June laughing. He was seeing us, really seeing us. The house was changing again, not getting bigger but deeper, more layered, more full. I kept the lottery money quiet. Only a few people knew where the funding came from. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about making space, making room for people who'd been told too many times they didn't belong. Emily came by with her daughter on a Sunday. The little girl Lily ran straight into my arms. She squealed. She was learning more words now, but stuck. I didn't mind. She dragged me to the garden and made me sit on the grass. We played pretend for an hour. She picked up rocks and said they were cookies. I ate every one. Emily watched us from the porch, her arms wrapped around herself. After Lily fell asleep on my chest, Emily came down and sat beside me. You've built something really beautiful here. I looked around the overgrown garden, at the porch swing, the people inside, sharing stories over soup. It's not perfect, I said. No, she said, but it's real. And that's more than most people have. She hesitated. Dawn and I are talking again about staying, about going to counseling. I nodded. I want to work here, she said suddenly. Not full-time, not yet, but maybe help organize things, fundraisers, groceries, schedules, help you grow it. I blinked. You sure? She smiled. I think I'm finally sure about something. We talked until the stars came out. She carried Lily inside, tucked her into the guest room for a nap. The rest of the house had settled into its usual evening rhythm. Eli sketching quietly by the window, June humming while folding tiny clothes. I sat on the porch again, alone, just like before, but this time, I didn't feel alone. I heard Emily's laugh drift through the door. I heard Hope's soft gurgle. I saw the porch light flicker on and I thought, this isn't just a second chance, it's a new beginning. The kind people don't always get. The kind you have to build, plank by plank, with patience and forgiveness. The kind that holds you even when you fall again. Inside, someone turned on the radio. A quiet song filled the air, something old and soft. I leaned back, watching the night sky stretch above me. Still not the end. Just another page turning, and I was finally ready to read on. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the gravel path as I walked slowly back toward the quiet little motel I now called home. The air was cooler than usual, brushing against my skin like a whisper. A strange mix of emotions swirled inside me: peace, sadness, something close to forgiveness. I was still holding the last letter Emily had sent me. It came 2 days ago, unlike the one before. This one wasn't angry. It didn't carry accusations or disappointment. Instead, it was short, hesitant, as if she were trying to reach out but didn't know how. Dad, I've been thinking about everything. I still don't understand why you didn't tell me the truth earlier, but I guess I didn't really give you space to explain, either. A lot has changed these last few weeks. Maybe we can talk sometime, Emily. My hands had trembled reading it, not from anger or nerves but something else entirely. Hope, maybe. That delicate, dangerous feeling that things might turn around. A few steps ahead, I spotted an elderly man sitting on the bench near the front office, hunched over with his cane resting between his knees. He looked up and gave me a tired smile. I nodded back. Evening, he said. Evening, I replied. We didn't say much else. We never did. But it was the kind of silence I appreciated. Not every connection needs words. Back in my room, the air was thick with the scent of the pine cleaner the housekeeper used. I sat at the small desk and opened my old notebook, flipping past the pages where I had started tracking lottery numbers, then pages where I'd written down memories I couldn't bear to let go of. Emily's first recital, the first time she scraped her knee, her college graduation. Then I turned to a clean page and began writing. Dear Emily, I read your letter 100 times. Maybe more. I don't know how to explain how much those words meant to me. I wanted to say sorry again, but maybe what I really want to say is thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for still calling me Dad. I paused, staring at the words, unsure if I was saying enough or too much. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't talking to the version of her who turned her back on me that night. I was talking to the girl I raised, the one who used to hold my hand when she was scared. I wasn't honest with you about losing my job because I didn't want you to worry. I didn't want you to think less of me. That was my pride, and I'm learning that pride isn't always worth the cost. I lost my job, but more than that, I lost my way. And when you told me to leave, it broke me. But maybe I needed to break. Maybe we both did. I folded the letter, tucked it into an envelope, and set it aside. I wasn't sure if I'd mail it. Not yet. The next morning brought a soft knock on my door. I opened it to find the motel manager, standing there, a curious look on her face. "You got a visitor," she said. I frowned. "A visitor?" She stepped aside, and there, standing just beyond the doorway, was Emily. She looked older somehow, not in a bad way, just ... different. Her eyes met mine, and for a second, neither of us said a word. "Hi, Dad," she finally said. I nodded, voice catching. "Hi, sweetheart. Can we talk?" "Of course, come in." She stepped into the small room, glancing around like she didn't quite know where to look. She sat down on the edge of the bed, smoothing her hands over her jeans. "I drove by here a couple times. I wasn't sure I'd be able to actually come in." "I'm glad you did." She looked up at me, her voice quiet. "You look thinner." I gave a small laugh. "Motel life diet. It's not all it's cracked up to be." She smiled, and something in her face softened. "I saw the story in the local news about the lottery. I didn't believe it at first." "You never were lucky at scratches." "Wasn't trying to be lucky," I said. "Just trying to keep myself busy." She nodded, staring at the floor. "You didn't call me, not even after that." "I didn't know if I should. I didn't want to think you'd only answer because of the money." Her head jerked up, eyes flashing. "Dad, come on, do you really think that little of me?" I held up a hand. "No, not really. But I've had a lot of time alone, and sometimes your mind plays tricks on you." We were quiet again. The hum of the air conditioner was the only sound between us. Then she said something I never expected. "I'm sorry I kicked you out." It was like the weight I'd been carrying cracked in half. "I was scared," she continued. "You were always the strong one. And seeing that you had lost control, that you weren't telling me things, I panicked. I thought pushing you away would help me stay strong, but all it did was make me feel more alone." I walked over and sat beside her, careful not to say too much. She turned to face me. "Do you want to come home?" My heart thudded once. "Hard, Emily. I don't want to come back just because I have money now. It's not that. It never was that. I just want you back because I miss my dad. The one who taught me how to ride a bike. The one who danced like a fool at my wedding." Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. "I miss you too." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small photo frame. It was the picture of us from her graduation, me with my arm around her, both of us grinning. "This has been on my nightstand the whole time," she said. "Even when I was mad. Even when I didn't understand." I took the frame from her, looking at the faces in it. Time had passed, but that love, it was still there. She stood. "Let's go get dinner. Talk, no pressure. Just ... talk." I smiled. "I'd like that." We walked out of the motel room together. The air felt different. Lighter ... as we got into a car. She reached over and squeezed my hand. I squeezed back. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Maybe healing didn't come all at once. Maybe it came in small moments. A letter, a knock on the door, a shared meal ... and the quiet, brave decision to forgive. I didn't know what the future would look like, but for the first time in a long while, I was ready to find out.